Welcome to the Pilates Cure. I'm Andrea Nichols, owner and teacher here at Pilates Cure, and today we're going to take a few minutes to go over some of the fundamentals that will be helpful for you before you join us in your first mat class. So I want to make sure that you have a small pillow off of your sofa or either a small ball with you today as we get started. The first thing we're going to talk about today is our Pilates box. It is shoulder to shoulder, hip to shoulder, and then hip to hip. We're going to reference that box a lot throughout our practice today. So whenever you hear me say Pilates box, I'm talking about that rectangular shape of those 4 bony landmarks. The second thing I want to mention today is a few movements that our shoulders are capable of: elevation, protraction, retraction, and depression. So right now, I want you to just sit comfortably and lift the shoulders up to the ears. You'll feel your shoulder blades slide up the rib bones and then push them down. So that's our first 2 moves, elevation and depression. From the rear, it looks like this: elevation and depression. You'll feel your shoulder blades slide up as the shoulders go up, and you'll feel your shoulder blades slide down as the shoulders go down. The next thing I want you to think about with our shoulders is protraction and retraction. Taking the arms straight out in front of you, I want you to reach into the fingertips, separate your shoulder blades, and feel your front collarbone round, and then pull and pinch your shoulder blades together. Feel your ribs pop and separate, and the arms pull back. Protraction, retraction. From the side, protraction, the shoulder blades separate. Retraction, they pull together. From the back, protraction, retraction. I also want to talk about breath while we're sitting here. I want you to take your thumbs and wrap around the base of the rib, or the back of the rib cage, and I want your fingertips to come to the front of the rib cage, and I just want you to take a nice big breath in. And then I want you to exhale out. I want you to continue doing that, and as you inhale in, I want you to not let the shoulders lift. And as you exhale out, you stay stacked nice and tall. And as you inhale in, focus the breath into the rib bones underneath the fingers. And then exhale all the way back out, feeling the rib bones draw together. And as you inhale, you feel the ribs pushing into the fingers on the front, the palms on the side, and even the thumbs on the back. And as you exhale in, you feel the rib bones draw away from those 3 points as well. So we're working on breathing into the full capacity of our lung, not just into the front side, not just into the belly. A lot of times we see people breathe into the belly or into the shoulders when we say take a deep breath. And I want us to really start focusing on lateral breath. So we're going to think of growing wider as we inhale and more narrow as we exhale. For the next part, I want you either standing or kneeling. I'm going to do it kneeling today, and I want you to take your middle finger and put to your hip bone, and then your thumb and put to the bottom rib bone. Right now, I want you to notice if one side feels longer than the other. If it does, square it back off so that both distances are the same height. And then I want you to begin to slide the hands around the back and notice if both distant is the same height in the back as well. We're going to talk about this later once we get lying down, but we're focused right now on our pelvis and our pelvic alignment. So I want you to think of opening the front body up like you're opening a mouth. The hip points and the rib bones come further apart. On the back, they've come closer together. And then I want you to exhale, come back into your neutral. Now I want you to open the mouth on the back body and think of shortening the front body, and then back to neutral. And again, we're going to inhale and exhale. One last time, we're going to inhale and exhale. Now I'm going to have you join me down on your back, laying on a comfortable mat. You can use a pillow for your head if you would like. So if you need a cushion under your head, absolutely slide one up underneath you. And let's think about our Pilates box now that we're lying down. Do we feel square in the shoulders and the hips? Do we feel evenly weighted throughout the entirety of this Pilates box, like a sandbox? Would all of the sand be evenly distributed, or would one side of your sandbox have a little bit more weight because that corner is dipped down? We want to try to get even distribution across the torso, so throughout our Pilates box. And now before we think about anything else, I just want you to breathe. And I want you to take a nice big inhale. And as you inhale, I want you to see if you can feel your ribs pushing wider against the floor. And then as you exhale out, feel them draw back in. And you're thinking of pulling everything into your midline. One more time, we're going to inhale. And exhale. Now let's talk about our neutral pelvis. So when we're lying down, a lot of times there's a tendency to imprint the low spine. So the hip bones are now lower than the pubic bone. So if we think about when we were kneeling, the back of our body is opened up wide like a mouth, and the front of our body is constricted, it's tightened. We're going to go to a neutral. We could also arch off here, and then the front of our body is opened like a mouth, and then come back to neutral. So now we're going to take a minute and we're going to explore those two extremes through what we call pelvic tilt. So we're going to inhale, and on an exhale, imprint the lumbar spine. And then inhale back to neutral, and arch off, and then back to neutral, and imprint. And then neutral, and arch off. Going back to neutral, we imprint, we call this an anterior pelvic tilt, back to neutral, and then arching off. This is a posterior pelvic tilt, and then back to neutral. We really want to try to maintain our neutral pelvis the entire time that we're lying down supine. So I like to think of my three bony landmarks, my two hip bones and my pubic bone, being in a nice flat plane, and it's like I have a drink set right in the middle of that triangle, and I don't want to spill the drink. The next thing we're going to talk about, which we talked about when we were upright, is our shoulders. Reach the fingertips up to the ceiling, and I want you to shrug the shoulders up to the ears. There's our elevation, and then slide them down. There's our depression. One more time, elevation, and then depression. We're going to try to keep sliding the shoulders down towards the hip bones or towards the waistband, so you can feel like your armpits sliding down to the bottom of the ribs. You can feel the shoulder blades sliding down to the bottom of the ribs. It's almost like you are pushing something with your hands, so you're feeling an activation through the lats and serratus. Now, I want you to inhale as you protract the shoulders off, your shoulders round off, and then retract and pinch them together. And we protract, the collarbone becomes rounded, we kind of straighten in the neck, and then we retract, and you kind of go into a baby back bend. And then I want you to find a neutral. Our goal is to stay shoulders depressed and neutral, pelvis neutral. The challenge becomes when we start to move the body. We start to move our extremities, our arms, our legs, and we try to stabilize through our powerhouse. So we try to stabilize our Pilates box, not allowing the movement of our arms or legs to reposition our pelvis, or to reposition our ribs, or to reposition our shoulder girdles. We find a lot of strength and mobility rooted deeply into that control that Pilates is famous for. those are just a few of the Pilates principles to get you started. The more you can excel and grow in those connections, the greater your experience is going to be with Pilates. It is truly a mind-body connection, and we must work on both to get the full experience of Pilates. So I hope you enjoy that. Review this as necessary, and I also encourage you to check out the next video in this series, which are our fundamental Pilates workout.